Hey kids, you're about to listen to a comedy podcast. That means that none of this is medical advice. If you need medical advice or medical care, please contact your doctor.
Welcome to the Jock Doc podcast featuring Dr. London Smith, your one-stop shop for that jock talk from a doc who's been around the block. Introducing your host, Dr. London Smith.
Hello, and welcome to the Jock Doc podcast, where we discuss fitness and health and how to incorporate our modern understanding of science and medicine into our daily lives, but without it being so boring. I'm your host, drlondonsmith.com. I would like to begin by apologizing to our listeners. We've received some feedback about the excessive amount of technical medical terms that I've been using, such as salicylate toxicity and wash your hands. So I will try to temper my terminology to a simpler one in the future. Here to help with that is our producer, Cameron.
Dr. London, it's good to see you today.
Thank you. You usually do not say that.
I'm in a good mood today. I mean, I'm a little sad because it is sort of nearing the end of summer. I know we've got a solid 3 or 4 weeks left, but we're getting to the end of summer, and I've had a good time this summer. I know it's been a weird year for a lot of people.
Yes.
And don't worry, I've been taking social distancing extremely seriously. But I've just had a good summer.
Because a lot of people feel like they've been sort of shuttered inside and isolating this summer, at least in the States. What's been different for you?
That's probably true for certain types of people and certain people who maybe don't have certain types of hobbies and stuff like that. But just for example, this last weekend, me and some friends, but we're social distancing, of course. We're keeping along a lot of distance. We decided to go to the beach, but we were social distancing the whole time at the beach. And so there was a gigantic crowd of people there, maybe 20,000 to 50,000 people. But we were all social distance. There was no problem with the social distancing. We were all social distancing.
What do you mean by
so then
social?
we started doing beer pong. And it was social distancing, beer pong, where we're throwing ping pongs into each other's drinks and then drinking it. But we're social distancing the entire time. And so then we were doing beer pong, and then we were doing a human pyramid, which was awesome because there were thousands of people, so it was a gigantic human pyramid. But we were, of course, social distancing the whole time. And it wasn't, of course, it wasn't an issue in terms of the COVID stuff, but we were social distancing the whole time. And then after we did the human pyramid with 20,000 people, we, got brunch, and, it's a cool, new kind of brunch where you and a group of 1,000 people just go from house to house, and everyone serves a different portion of the brunch. But we were social distancing the entire time. And it was just a fun weekend. And this has been a summer to remember, and I'm sad it's getting close to the end, Dr. London.
I can't help but think that when you use the term social distancing, what do you mean by that? Because that's 6 feet apart.
We've been social distancing. I mean, it's social distancing the entire time. It's been a social distance friendly. I mean, these parties and these raves that I've been going to, and these cupcake wars that I've been doing, and these turkey trots. There's been a lot of turkey trots lately. They've all been very socially distant, and we've been social distancing a lot. And it's been a really fun summer.
When you say social distancing, do you just mean you don't socialize verbally in the way that you used to? Is that what you mean?
Oh no, I just mean we were social distancing the whole time.
Yeah, but so what do you mean by, because social distancing?
Means you're getting confused on the amount of time. It was the whole time.
6 feet apart. That doesn't seem possible in a human pyramid, for instance. That seems like you're going to be really touching someone else.
Oh, and I forgot about the mud wrestling. We were all mud wrestling. We were socially distant, of course. And it got to the point where so many people were wrestling each other and stacked on top of each other that I think the people at the bottom of the wrestling pit died. But not from COVID, because we were social distancing.
Okay, I feel like this, you don't know what social distancing means. That sounds pretty dangerous. And
we're doing it the whole time.
Yes.
Okay, well, also with us is DJ Till in the house.
It's just been a really fun summer. Social distancing.
Social distancing.
Social distancing.
It's just been a really fun summer. Social distancing.
We're doing it the whole time. Social distancing.
Wash your hands.
But like we're social distancing like the entire time.
Social distancing.
Social distancing. Wash your hands.
I've had a good time this summer. I know it's been like a weird year for a lot of people. And don't worry, I've been taking social distancing like extremely seriously. We were doing like a human pyramid, which was awesome because there were like thousands of people, which so it was like a gigantic human pyramid. But we were, of course, like social distancing the whole time. It was just a fun weekend, and this has been a summer to remember, and I'm sad it's getting close to the end. Oh, we've been social distancing like the entire time. It's been a social distance friendly. I mean, these parties and these raves that I've been going to, these like cupcake wars that I've been doing, these turkey trots. There's been a lot of turkey trots lately. They've all been like very socially distant.
And later, Cameron tells me that we can expect a special guest. Wow. So do look forward to that.
That's true, Dr. London. That is very, very true.
Before we move on, I would like to address a bit of listener feedback. This comes from Platypie Podcast on Twitter. So I'm not familiar with that. But they said, I heard your mnemonic for learning 911, but as a Brit, I have a question. Can I get a mnemonic for 999 over here? So, first of all, thank you to Platypie Podcast on Twitter for reaching out.
Twitter, I can help you out a little bit. Twitter, Dr. London, is the website where right now Ashton Kutcher and the CNN Newsbreak Twitter are racing to see who is the first Twitter account to get 1 million followers. And I've been watching this race, and it's been so exciting. And I think Ashton's going to do it. I just think Ashton's going to do it. But the CNN breaking news Twitter is so close behind him. I don't know. It's going to happen soon.
Okay, so that's what the Twitter, that whole competition is who is asking us about a mnemonic for 999. Because to me, at a glance on Twitter, it just seemed like an odd last name. Maybe it's a British kind of last name.
Could be, but I doubt it.
What they're referencing...
They're wanting a mnemonic device. Oh yeah, what are they referencing, Dr. London? Do you remember?
In our first episode, actually, Cameron, you struggled to remember the numbers 911 in a sequential order for the purposes of, calling that number in an emergency in the States. But 999 actually seems like an easier set of numbers since they all match. Do we have any tips for them?
This is what this person needs to do. It's less of a mnemonic device, and it's more of just using real-world tools. Because in the real world, you don't necessarily have like, oh, A means this, and B means this, and C means this. Sometimes you need tools, what you've written down, what you have on you. So carry on you at any given time a DVD copy of The Omen. And then at that point, at a certain point in The Omen, 666 has to come up. I haven't watched The Omen. I don't know, but I have to assume that 666 is brought up. Like, I'm pretty sure it was released on June 6th, 2006 or something like that, right?
1966, yeah.
Yes. Just carry that with you and then just flip it upside down. And if you can't remember to flip something upside down, then maybe remember that a frown is an upside down smile.
Okay, and this is, of course, we have to remember the audience, so we are speaking to the listener who is the competition of Ashton Kutcher versus CNN Breaking News. Which is Twitter. That combination is Twitter.
And so if you find yourself in an emergency, find a DVD player, stick The Omen in, watch it. I assume probably in the first 30 minutes, the number 666 will come up at least once. So, sometime within the next half hour, you'll get your phone number. And it's just that easy. So
Cameron's method or the traditional method of just, I guess, remembering it. Anyway,
well, no, you just bring the Omen. And I really want to stress that I'm talking about the 2006 remake. I think you said something about the 60s. It was really the 70s. That is garbage. 2006.
Okay, I just assumed that it was released.
In the universe of the original film, which again, I have not seen, I know for a fact that Justin Timberlake's Future Love Sex Sounds did not exist. Whereas in this version, which came out in 2006, I know that it did exist. That makes a huge difference to the film.
Okay. Which you haven't seen.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, wait.
2006 version.
Yeah.
Carry it with you.
We can go ahead and move on from there. Now for today's medical topic, chylothorax, otherwise known as lymphatic pleural effusion. A chylothorax is the term for when lymphatic fluid accumulates in the pleural space, which is located between the tissues that line the lungs and the chest. Whereas other pleural effusions, which we've talked about, those are caused by increased fluid accumulation. Chylothorax is typically more of an issue of a blocked drain. So, Cameron, I don't know, you may have heard of lymph nodes. So between lymph nodes, there are lymphatic channels, and one of those channels is called.
All right. Well, what are between those?
Lymphatic fluid.
Yes.
Is within the channels, if that's what you mean. So it's
okay, but I mean, what's between those?
Negative space, maybe, or maybe positive. I'm not. So it's a fluid.
So once again, you're speaking about a subject you know nothing about. You've never researched this. You've never even looked it up. All you see is the title of these articles that you read on like drdaily.gov or whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, lymphatic channel. You know about lymph nodes at least, right?
Nope.
That's where they'll swell up during an infection.
Yeah, it's where lymph is in between.
No, sorry.
That's where lymph lives, in between those.
And then there's a lymphatic ducts in between, yes, the lymph nodes.
And then between the lymph, there might be like positive or negative space. I know all this stuff.
Right. Okay, so one of those channels is called the thoracic duct, and that's, spoiler, that's in your thorax. A chylothorax can be caused by damage to this thoracic duct during a thoracic surgery, but it could also be caused by tumors in the mediastinum that press up against the thoracic duct and compress it shut, or from hematologic malignancies. The average latent period between the insult and the onset of symptoms is 7 to 10 days. Symptoms may include shortness of breath, increased rate of breathing, and that's known as tachypnea, and other classic symptoms of pleural effusions. Rarely, patients may experience accumulation of fluid in the pleural space, causing a tension chylothorax, which leads to, rapid hemodynamic and respiratory compromise. So anyway, on physical, I'm sorry.
Oh, this sort of reminds me, like, this is a really important subject that I'm glad we're covering, because I think people don't focus on the thorax enough. Because you think like, oh, this is just the portion of the body where it's kind of keeping the important parts together, right? Like it's keeping my head and my antenna on up here on the head part.
Right.
And, it's also something that like my stinger is connected to. And people neglect that, like, hey, the thorax, like, even though it's kind of keeping everything together and it might be kind of boring, blah, blah, blah. It's really important to take care of. And I'm really glad we're talking about this today.
Yeah, maybe I should clarify one point that we don't have, stingers or antennas, if that's what you're getting at. We do.
Well, if we have a thorax,
we have a thoracic region, yeah.
And we would have an antenna, and you might have a stinger. I'm not going to say everyone has a stinger, but obviously some people do.
When you say obviously, some people do.
Yeah.
What people? Mm-hmm. What evidence? You make it sound like you've seen it.
Well, me and most of my friends.
Oh, you don't? Okay, well, anyway. On physical exam, patients may have decreased breath sounds or shifting dullness, and if the patient has an existing test tube, remember this can happen after surgery, drainage of 400 to 600 cc's per 8-hour period is concerning for a chylous leak, particularly in post-surgical patients. For diagnosis, chest x-ray can be used to spot a pleural effusion, but it's more helpful to rule out other causes of patient symptoms and to determine whether the effusion is bilateral or on both sides of the lungs. If the etiology of the chylothorax is unknown, a CT or MRI of the chest and abdomen should be obtained for evaluation of the lymphatic vessels and to rule out vascular abnormalities and or malignancy. And there are a lot of other imaging modalities. You can use lymphangiography when the anatomy of the thoracic duct needs to be defined preoperatively or when the site of the leak is not clinically obvious. And you're following this, Cameron?
Sometimes, like, if you're trying to go through a hole, your antenna will tell you that you won't be able to fit into the hole because it's like hitting the sides of it. But it's actually not the case. It's kind of like with cats and whiskers. Sometimes you can fit through the hole, but because your antennas are sort of pointed at an angle, it's actually hitting a wider space than your actual head. And I think that's really what we're getting to the heart of, and sort of the importance of education in medicine today.
Okay, and you mean that with regard to defining the anatomy of the thoracic duct? That's what you're relating to here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ducks have eaten, a lot of my friends and family. Any of my family that might have lived in hills by ponds or anything like that.
Okay, so
ducks like to nibble on it.
So lymphoscintography is also useful.
Bring that up.
Yes, sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted. It sounded like that was actually an important moment for you. I'm sorry to hear that.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm sorry to hear that about ducks eating friends or family of yours.
I mean, have you been woken up in the middle of the night by a duck that's 500 times your size, and you and just your family's antennas are all just going crazy because everything's going wrong all of a sudden, and you're like, what did I do to deserve this? Yeah. You've never experienced that.
Yeah.
You don't know what the PTSD is like from that.
Okay, so lymphoscintography is also useful for localization of a leak, evaluation of the thoracic duct patency, and differentiation of partial from complete thoracic duct transection. Thoracentesis and pleural fluid analysis are the criterion standards to establish a diagnosis of chylothorax. Alternatively, in a post-surgical patient, tube thoracostomy output can be analyzed. Pleural fluid analysis for triglyceride content helps to confirm the diagnosis of chylothorax. Triglyceride levels greater than 110 milligrams per deciliter. That reflects a 99% chance that the fluid is chyle. A ratio of pleural fluid cholesterol to triglyceride of less than 1 is also diagnostic. Treatment can be with conservative means or surgery. Focus is usually on treating the underlying cause. And it is important to remember that the thoracic duct leak also closes spontaneously in nearly 50% of patients. So, and I don't know how that, I'm not sure how that would relate to what you were saying.
Most of that latter stuff is irrelevant to me and my family. I mean, we don't really worry about disease too much in my family because usually, the way we're going to get eaten is by like a duck or a grasshopper or something like that. Or maybe we get starved out because the grasshoppers ate all our food or, something like that. It's usually less of a disease kind of thing. But that's fine. It doesn't have to be about me.
And
I'm just glad we talked about the thorax finally. We didn't put enough emphasis on that in the past.
Yeah, I admit that we haven't really touched on it so much, mostly because it's not, we don't normally refer, I guess we have a thoracic area, but we don't really call it the thorax as often as, the chest or, whichever area. But
yeah.
We can go ahead and move on from there, if that's all right.
Sure.
Okay. All right, Cameron, you said that we have a guest today. Is that right?
That's right, Dr. London. We have a very awesome guest today. You notice that I'm changing up my verbiage a little bit here because I don't want to cause confusion. Because before, when I was saying incredible, when I was saying special, when I was saying all these different kinds of guests, you kept assuming it was Shaquille O'Neal. because you were saying, well, he's the only person in the world who's that incredible. I guarantee you it's not Shaquille O'Neal, and stop asking, because I see it in your face.
But
London. It's not Shaquille O'Neal, I promise.
no, it should.
Could be someone close. I don't know. We're going to find out.
Okay.
Okay,
no, and I almost... No, it could be whatever, I guess. Yeah. So, hello to our guest. My name is drlondonsmith.com. This is our producer, Cameron.
Hello.
What was your name?
You don't sound British. London
Thank
Smith.
you.
London Smith. Are you American?
Yeah, well, citizenship-wise, yeah.
Cameron.
Yeah.
You didn't tell me anything about this being about foreign relations. You know, I don't have clearance.
Well, okay.
Is he American?
Look, I'm gonna be completely honest here, and I'm gonna say I do not know, because I've been wondering the same thing for a really long time, but I've been too sort of embarrassed to ask. His name is London, right? I mean, it kind of assumes when I hear London, I'm thinking fish and chips. I'm thinking
rain and fog and
Victoria
and
Beckham,
cowardice.
Sherlock Holmes, Harry Potter's dad. These kind of very important.
I knew a guy like him. We met at an international conference for custodial engineers, and that guy was so dim he could not even remember the emergency number for his own country, which was 999. Couldn't figure it out.
Moron.
I told him, I said, just remember when the Germans bombed your city and you wanted to shout no at them in German, and you said 999. Never forgot it.
Yep.
Never forgot it. By the way, I'm Frank S. Harris.
Frank S. Harris.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, well, nice to have you. Did you say you were at a custodial conference?
Yeah. I am, I am semi-retired. I am I guess today they call it a custodial engineer. When several years ago, you might refer to it as a janitor, and maybe before that as a cleaner. But when I started, it was just that guy. Get that guy over here. Get that guy over here to clean up that vomit before, the vice president wakes up. That sort of thing.
Okay, so it's very higher up for janitorial work. It's within...
The work itself is not higher up. I mean, we all expel horrible waste from 3 different orifices in our body, but the clearance is an issue, because there are some serious issues that are being discussed and sometimes dealt with.
So I assume, probably a lot of what you know is confidential, because it sounds like you're dealing with very important people. Even if you're dealing with maybe not the highest position within these closed doors, but you're certainly behind.
Well, sure. Yeah, but Cameron, after you told me about your little internet radio show here that you do with the British doctor, I realized that it would be totally okay for me to share some of these confidential secrets, because can't be that many people actually listening to you.
Oh yeah, it's got to be just us. Like, just the 3 of us. I would say the odds of another person listening to this are, I don't, how do I say 0 in odds form? Is that just 0?
You should think about a solo project, Cameron.
We have some listeners, right? We have because we track them a lot. That's the only reason I assume
we have
them.
downloads. We definitely have downloads.
Oh, but
I would say most of that is through like trickery, through scamming people, through like getting into people's computers, through borrowing their phone when I see people out.
Because you'll send it
Things
to
like
people in a file form and then tell them to download it, and they'll get whatever, I don't know, money making scheme you have.
And then they're gonna have the viruses. Every download has viruses. Do you people not sanitize? My God, you call yourself a doctor. Cameron, you told me this was some kind of medical podcast.
It's barely a medical podcast. He doesn't know what he's doing, and we've talked about his credentials before. They're in question. Now,
I'm sitting out there in your waiting room. Sounds like a movie show. We're talking about Star Wars with Kylo Ren. I don't get it. I don't understand.
So, Chylothorax.
Oh, the Lorax, the Dr. Seuss book, the Lorax.
Hopefully, DJ Dylan this week won't cut out all of our discussion about Star Wars and Kylo Ren, because we do spend about 30 to 45 minutes every single week talking about that, but it never seems to make it in the episode. So, DJ Dylan, we'll see.
Nope.
That's our efforts to remain relatable.
It's half the podcast was supposed to be about that, but
Yeah.
Yeah. But so, I mean, yeah, Dr. London, he's obsessed with the Lorax. He's obsessed with the Lorax's mustache. He's British.
He speaks for the trees.
And I can't guarantee that he sanitizes. That's an interesting question. So you obviously have an importance in your life about sanitizing items and keeping things clean. How does it affect your day-to-day life? I mean, are all your friends and family super clean people also? Or, is that...
I am a proud great-grandfather, I want to say.
Great.
And, of course, I have raised my family, and they have raised their family to be prepared for a kind of crisis like we are going through at this moment, to be aware of hygiene and sanitation. As a matter of fact, that's the name of my first two boys, hygiene and sanitation.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, they got teased a little bit in school, but now they're both managers at a Safeway, so it's good. It's all good.
They've reached a level that a lot of people are never going to reach.
And who's laughing now?
Sure, I mean, they're not a fake doctor like Dr. London Smythe, but, they're I'm proud of them. They're good boys. But the thing is, I have worked in some of the most top secret agencies, the NSA, Homeland. I've worked in the CIA. I've worked for the BBQ, and I have seen things.
Wow.
And I'm sitting out there, and I'm hearing this man purporting to be a medical professional talking about leaky ducts, problems with ducts. Man, duct tape is your answer. All this stuff about the Chylothorax with the accumulated lymph duct blocked drains, you need duct tape. It's right there at the Walmart, probably next to the register.
He wouldn't even know that because his bougie, posh lifestyle would never allow him to walk inside of a Walmart. That's who we're dealing with here.
Hold on, Cameron. I'm bougie too, so don't criticize the bougie. I'm bougie too.
Well, of course you are, sir.
Come on.
I didn't mean to offend here. I mean, I think everyone's bougie in their own way.
Oh, it's okay. Bougie people are easily offended. I totally understand.
I did have a question. You mentioned that you've worked at Homeland. Have you ever dug through Mandy Patinkin's trash?
That television show was actually a documentary.
Say what?
Mandy Patinkin has been working as an agent for the government since the 1980s. Everything you've seen Mandy Patinkin in has been a documentary. It's like the Truman Show, except in reverse and self-continuing.
It's in reverse, so we're all in the bubble? Is that what that means?
That's what you think.
It's definitely what I think now. I mean, Dr. London, what do you think of this?
I guess I'm not following completely. So I don't get out to watch a lot of Homeland or whatever. Really, I just focus on the medicine stuff. So, as you were talking about with the Chylothorax.
Well, I did work for the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration. So I got to see a lot of medications as they were being developed, including, I really have to tell you, I was really enjoying what they were doing in connection with the pharmacology of the MK Ultra program when the FDA and the CIA were working together. Just remember that next time you're brushing your teeth with your fluoridated water.
So wait. You've been working like with heavy clearance since MK Ultra, which was that was the 60s, right?
Well, before that.
It's before that. Are we talking this was post World War II?
I began with the OSS, believe it or not.
OSS, is that?
I was the guy. Yep.
You're the guy?
Yep.
That?
Yep.
So.
Wow.
Yep, that's me. I was the one.
And if this is an inappropriate question, you can just say that. Would you mind if I ask you your age?
According to calendar years, I'm almost 86. But I did get exposed to something when I had a slight... I worked on a contractual basis, you have to understand, at the beginning, and I had to go out to New Mexico for a certain sort of cleanup. And since then, I have found that, how to say it, I'm kind of Benjamin Buttoning.
Okay.
Oh. I've heard about this.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this does, I mean,
yeah.
this does track. I mean, as we all know, the government uses freelance custodians for their cleaning crews. They hire people
Sure.
got to get a new contract every season, and then you ship them out. So you're going to work on that kind of contract level.
Well, people think about mercenaries and the wet work, going and assassinating and killing and private military. But people don't think about who cleans up after them.
That's right.
Freelance custodians.
Were you a child when you worked on those early projects? Because I'm thinking with the Benjamin Button thing, how old did you, I guess, appear at those times? Because now I'm just wondering.
At that time, I was naturally the age of 13, but I lied and told them I was 15 so that I could be their coffee boy.
Okay.
So wait, then what age did you start?
Oh, sorry, you looked older at that time. That's right. Okay.
Because
When I reached my 120th birthday, I began to reverse.
okay, so when you're saying you're 86 years old, you're saying you're like 150-ish.
More, maybe, but I just... Look, to be honest, I look 86. And I look a good 86. I gotta
Well-
say, there's a lot of 60, 68, 69-year-old women that find this to be a nice piece of meat. But...
Oh, you're still dating.
It's just easier. Well, sure.
That's exciting.
I mean, my blessed wife, she went on to her reward about 20 years ago.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm really sorry about that.
No, don't be. Her reward was half of what I own. She's very, very happy. Bitch.
Yeah.
She
so-
received half of what you own, like, in her death?
No, she's alive. She sued me and then divorced me. Sued me because I gave her life eternal, or the Benjamin Button thing, or whatever. It seems to be a sexually transmitted thing. And the problem was that she did not want that because it reversed her menopause and made her want children again. And, well, let's just say I've got some half grandchildren running around that look suspiciously like the tennis coach down at the club.
And are they also Benjamin Buttoning the children? The grandchildren?
They're pretty young. It's hard to tell at this point.
That is true. Very young babies can look very similar to old men. Can't you agree with that? I would say once you get to about 5
Maybe
years
not
old.
Benjamin Buttoning, but it's the best thing I can think of, Maybe it's Dorian Gray, and I don't know. Maybe there's a painting of me somewhere.
So that accident in Mexico that caused all this, what were the circumstances
Mexico.
for that? I'm sorry, there's a New Mexico. I wasn't aware. So in New Mexico.
It's between West Mexico and Greater
Okay.
Mexico.
Okay.
Never was a geography buff.
No, nobody is. We all make it up as we go along. We know that. There was... How can I explain this? A certain branch of the military had some highly advanced potential fuel that they had gathered from, let's say, external source. And come to find out, that stuff was acid, and it was eaten through every level. And so they could not figure how to stop it. It's like if you see that movie Alien, when they cut him and his blood starts eating all the way through. It was eating all the way through, all the way down, level by level. I mean, the installations out there, they're like 40 stories underground. So they call me out there.
And this has been, not to
And
interrupt, I apologize, but I need to talk about this later with you, Dr. London. This has been happening a lot with the soda I've been making, where if it spills on the ground, it starts sort of kind of
Burning
leaking through to the bottom.
Yeah.
Going through layer. Like, I spilt it on the 8th floor of a building the other day. It went right down through to the parking garage underneath. We need
Cameron,
to look into
buttermilk.
that. Oh, it was a...
Buttermilk.
Okay.
That's what it was?
That's what counteracts it.
Okay.
No. It was absolutely an extraterrestrial acid. It was actually some sort of alien urine. But the thing was, what you needed to counteract the acid was buttermilk.
Okay, all right.
And so...
I'm going to make a buttermilky soda. This sounds great.
There you go. Right. So when I I had to get in there and I had to put the buttermilk around all of the openings and stuff to neutralize the acid, and there was some sort of exposure, long-term exposure to it. It's what caused my physiology to begin to change. So
Okay. So it was.
Now, did it have any other effects beyond just your age? Like, have you seen any other like physical side effects or mental side effects or anything like that from?
Well, I do have psoriasis on the backs of my knees,
Okay.
which I did not have before.
That could
do
just be from. I mean, this
tend
was like 40 something years ago, right?
You're probably right. Oh, also, ever since that day, I find that I cannot bear American situation comedies
Okay.
on the television.
That is really unfortunate.
Psychological as well.
Yeah, not a one of them. Not even the Netflix things, man. Not even those. You show me 4 cameras in 22 minutes, and I just want to vomit.
Oh, is it multicam specific?
Well, I mean, that's everything these days, isn't it? I could bear The Office, but the humor in it just made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right.
Just too many cameras, even though it was single cam.
You know,
One too
Cameron,
many.
I was sitting before this show. I was sitting out in the Jock Dock Plaza lounge just
Yeah.
outside, and I was chatting with your lovely receptionist Rosette, and she, lovely woman, by the way, can't make a cup of coffee to save
She's
her life,
new.
but lovely
She's
woman
new.
Rosette. So,
Well, on her
that makes sense.
hands,
Makes a lot of
they
sense.
don't bend around a mug properly.
Well, her nubs.
they sort of.
It's because she's got arthritis. How can a doctor have a podcast in a business this size and let his assistant sit out there with rheumatoid arthritis serving coffee? Dr. London, you should be ashamed.
Well, that's because.
But my point,
If Dr. London gets a little too close to her, or tries to talk to her too much, then she files a complaint with HR, which is me.
as she should. Okay. Well, it's good you have a procedure.
Yeah.
But you were bringing up the movie The Omen. Did you know that also was a documentary?
Wow.
But that was more about the Department of Health and Human Services. So.
That does make sense. I want to talk a little bit more about this transformation. I mean, you started Benjamin Buttoning a while ago. Do you remember the exact year you started? Going backwards?
Was 19. Who was president? It was Nixon. Nixon was president.
Okay.
Okay, so we're talking about the Nixon years
And
here.
and Richard Nixon, not his wife Pat.
Yeah,
Okay.
or not Nixon Jr. either. I mean, we all lived through Nixon Jr.'s presidential years, and it was tough, but we
And
got
that-
through it.
Again, I can't stand sitcoms, so I didn't enjoy what Nixon Jr.
Yeah. Now, I want to hear a little bit more about, what happened after this? Like, you're working your custodial services for the government agencies. You get spilled on by some sort of, like, alien substance of some sort. Was that the end of the
Urine. Alien
yeah.
urine.
Was that the end of the story? I mean, no one, like, in the government that you were working for questioned why you were aging backwards after you were exposed to this stuff. It was just
Or the
you just
psoriasis.
continued on
Well-
janitorial services.
A lot of things happen in the various government agencies that are supposedly up there to protect your interests as free Americans. And so, yes, unusual things happen. They are documented. They are tracked. I still have to go into the VA and pee in a cup every 90 days, and they don't tell me why. But in exchange, I have a lovely compound with 3 homes and a swimming pool, which is not bad for a freelance custodial engineer.
I would say that's pretty great.
Whenever you
Living wise.
pee in a cup, it doesn't burn through the cup like that alien urine. Like have those aspects of yourself, your own fluids, have those changed at all since the incident?
No, I will say it. If you're around me, if you live with me, if you're in the urinal next to me, you probably think I ate asparagus, and that's every day now. But beyond that,
Okay.
no.
Okay. So it just stinks like hell.
Yeah,
That's
but
not too bad.
I'm an old man. People expect me to stink.
Okay, so you say you're partially retired. That means you're probably working part-time, so you're still continuing with your janitorial services, right?
One does not ever leave the company, you may know. So yeah, I'm semi-retired, but I have knowledge. It's not so much that I know where the bodies are buried, because it doesn't matter, because the bodies move around. But I do know how to get certain stains and offensive marks up.
Okay.
In time. I mean, say for example that you have just solved a formula to prove the existence of dark matter, and you've done it on a napkin, And then, the hooker that you're with uses the napkin and the lipstick is smearing the formula. So you call Frank S. Harris. He can get that lipstick off without making the ink run so you can still see the formula, and the hooker gets disappeared.
Okay. This sounds
I clean it
very
off.
specific.
Well,
Well, there was an instance, but,
the specificity is definitely interesting. But actually, Dr. London, I'm more interested in the last thing that he said right there.
Hooker?
Was that after cleaning the hooker's lipstick off the note, that he then gets rid of, he cleans the hooker.
Yeah, which...
I said the hooker got disappeared.
Yeah. So I gotta know a little more about that. Do you use Shout, or do you use like major brands for that disappearing hooker? Or do you use any sort of specialty cleaner cocktail?
Invisible ink?
Yes, Dr. London. Finally, he shows a little bit of spine. Have you ever heard of the Acme Corporation?
Of course.
Right?
Yeah. Roadrunner.
Now, the thing is, people don't realize that it is actually a real corporation. Portable hole. Where else you going to get a portable hole?
Yeah, exactly.
They've maintained that patent. Well, I get invisible paint. Now, you have to have an invisible paintbrush. But I get invisible paint. I paint the hooker. And then she goes about her day. She's disappeared.
Okay, so she is still...
sure, she has to put on a little bit more makeup if she wants to be seen. Sure. But there's some advantages. You get to walk around naked and nobody sees you.
Yeah.
Maybe you can...
Okay.
I feel like I'm a little still... Dr. Lennon, can I talk to you?
Yeah, just for a second, we'll sidebar.
Do I need to go out there with your...
Yeah, do you want to just play games on my phone while me and Dr. London talk real quick?
Oh, no. I don't deal with them phones. I'm just going to step over here and I'm going to talk to you.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great. Okay,
better.
Dr. London.
Yeah.
Okay, he's talking about using invisible ink on these people and they walk away and they're invisible. Is it possible that when he's talking about like invisible paintbrush is what you have, he's talking about something that's not a paintbrush? He's talking about something that's more permanently removing these people from the earth? Like
an eraser, like a bigger brush?
Yeah, like an eraser shaped like a machete. Or a knife. Or a gun. Or some sort of poison pill.
Yeah, I guess
or piano wire.
A brush in the shape
noose.
of the... Well, I would argue that part of a brush is shaped kind of like a piano wire at the start. It's got those bristles. So, if that's what you mean.
Okay, so you think instead of just using a different item completely, he's still using a brush that he's fashioned into some sort of murder weapon.
Murder? Okay, well, this is the first I've...
Ugh, you are insufferable. Let's go back to the conversation.
Okay.
Now, Frank, I got a couple more questions.
Man, I like her. I got to tell you, she's all right. I told her about the conversation. She thought it was great. I'm going to disappear her later. Oh, it's going to be fun.
I'm going to say she's busy. She is skateboarding later.
You just wait, nope. Cameron. I'm going to sneak up behind you and disappear you when you don't expect it. You're going to love it.
Nope. We're busy skateboarding later, but maybe next Tuesday or something like that, we can talk about it. We can reschedule a different time for everyone.
I'm sorry, Dr. London, but...
You know what? Well, what...
Dr. London, I'm not going to be disappearing you.
Well, that's kind of harsh, because...
You're kind of bland, and you blend in anyway. I mean, you look like a woman had a baby with a manila envelope. Yeah. So, you kind of blend in, so you don't really need to be disappeared.
Cameron, what's confusing...
But you don't look like Cary Grant. You don't look like a jacked Cary Grant like Cameron,
right.
You know?
What's kind of upsetting to me, Cameron, is... Like, he's already counting me out for this treatment. You've been talking for the past, 2 weeks, every day about how you wish you were invisible. You wish you could just sneak up on people. And today, you finally have your chance. And suddenly, you think it's bad. So that's what I'm confused about.
I got everything I need in the trunk of my car to disappear you right now, Cameron. I can take you out back and disappear you if you want.
This is. I mean, Dr. London, you are right. I have continuously talked about being invincible. I have talked about how fun it would be to hide on at the top of Splash Mountain as people go by, and just be able to wash and then maybe like splash people when they're not expecting it. And I think that would be the funnest
nobody's
thing in
gonna
the
let
world.
you on the top of Splash Mountain. Don't you know that? Splash Mountain is where the Scientologists keep their antenna. You're not gonna get up there.
Well, that is, I mean, I didn't want to get into that on the podcast, but that was part of
You
the
can get
reason
on the
I wanted to get up
Matterhorn.
there.
You can get up on the Matterhorn if you want, but not Splash Mountain.
I can get up on Splash Mountain. Don't worry. I've done my like Dianetics test and whatnot, so I've got a.
Are you clear?
I not yet, but I'm like getting there. I'm like
So-
so close. I need like 30 more Coke tops, like Coke bottle caps, and then I'll finally be
okay.
clear.
So, and I'm sorry to change the subject slightly, but I just want to
Sure,
make
sure.
sure we cover exactly. So what I thought you were here to do, Mr. Frank S. Harris, I thought you were here to explain like how to sanitize things, with this virus going around, how to make sure we all stay clean and healthy, and
Well, I can. Absolutely.
Well,
I mean, like I said, it's something I raised my children. And I got to say, Cameron, I was listening to you talking about your weekend and your beer pong and your 20,000 person human pyramid. And I did a little bit of calculation. You and your group took up 5 square miles for your brunch.
Yes.
If you were social distancing correctly.
yeah, I mean,
So that's what I want to know. Did you take up 5 square miles with your group?
unfortunately, I didn't have a drone or any sort of aerial view of the space, so that would be really difficult to measure. But
How can you properly socially distance without a drone?
we were social distancing, like we were having a lot of fun, and it was a great time. I want to hear a couple more secret cleanups though, secret spills that you've dealt with over your career. I mean, let's talk about some real stuff right here. I mean, John F. Kennedy. Well, John F. Kennedy was shot in a vehicle. I assume someone had to clean up that vehicle afterwards, because obviously they're not just going to throw it away. Someone's going to use it. Were you involved in that cleanup, in that spill?
I was the one that had to supply the gigantic Ziploc bag to put that car in. That was
because it was
that
evidence.
was a challenge.
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
evidence, and we had to. And it went to Area 52. And it's in storage there still.
Sure.
Because, it's still a good source of DNA for the clones, the blood all over it, and that sort of thing. So we still make the clones.
Whoa! I gotta stop real quick. We're just glossing over the clone thing here. Who JFK is being cloned?
Well, not just him. No, not just him.
don't limit it.
I mean, how? Okay, yeah. How wide is this net? How many people are being cloned?
I'd say about 5% of Americans.
What? 5% of Americans are they all important people, or is it just random?
Many of them are important. Many of them are wealthy. Many of them, but most of them are just genetically good stock.
Okay.
So as
You've made it clear that I'm not one of those. That'd be Cameron. Would be.
No, sorry, we wouldn't be interested in you. We've already got our Cameron clones. But thank you.
Well, wait a second. This is interesting.
In what way?
You're saying I can
Because he was just about to tell us
marry
how to clean
someone
up
who's
properly.
exactly like myself? Huh? Oh, I was gonna say, are you saying I can marry someone exactly like myself? Finally,
Well, sure,
the
man.
whole point of this podcast, I mean, from the beginning, was talking to doctors and scientists and trying to figure out how to clone myself so I can finally marry the only person who deserves me, which is me.
I will say though, Cameron, your clones are completely hairless.
That's fine.
Are you sure?
It's kind of cute.
They do not have eyebrows. They look constantly surprised.
Oh, so
I
they just
mean,
have
I would say they
them up
look,
here.
yeah, like constantly going through chemo, which would be a surprise.
Pretty much.
And so then you've got sympathy right there, built in.
Well, I mean, if you want to meet them, we can talk, but it's a one-way trip, Cameron. I mean,
Well, what do you mean?
all right, look, I'm staying up here because I believe that we can get through this crisis together if we can all get on the same page, but I'm not the only one to think. There's a lot of people think differently than me. And there's a place. And there's a place where the clones and the rich people are populating to survive a disaster like this. And I mean,
And you're cleaning up
I'm
their
cleaning
trash?
up what they've left behind. I'm kind of like the bodhisattva of janitorial custodians. I could go to Nirvana, but I choose to stay behind and clean up so people like you and Dr. Bland here can still have the life of a free American.
Well,
Dr. London, I'm going to be honest. I've done a complete 180 on this guy. I was pretty sure he was going to kill me before, and he is.
No, I'm going to disappear you.
invisible.
But
You literally become invisible.
He's going to disappear me, and I'm kind of okay with this now. All of this sounds awesome.
Well,
I mean, London, what are your thoughts?
I feel like we kind of skipped over the what I consider to be the more relevant medical aspects of having a custodial guest on the podcast, especially one so high ranking in his career. But, we have run across a few interesting things. Maybe we'll just have maybe we'll send out a memo or something I just want to make sure our listeners stay safe. That's all. But, that being said, we can go ahead and wrap up, I guess, unless...
Real quick, I just want to say, I think you need to stop concerning yourself with whether or not our listeners are safe, because I've made it where our podcast is only audible if you're going over 120 miles per hour.
Right.
So I would assume most people listening to this show are going very, very fast in their car. I assume we have quite a bit of Autobahn, listeners. I'm not exactly sure. But
I will say, as I was listening to podcasts in preparation, I found out that the podcast player no longer works unless I wrap my phone in a mask.
That's just to keep you safe.
That is also true. The London made me do that. I don't agree with all of that stuff, but
well,
I just agree, and I just think all you need really is social distancing, like I did with me and my friends.
No, I think people should wear masks. Masks make you look like a superhero. People should totally wear masks and be superheroes.
So, Mr. Frank S. Harris, as we wrap up, is there any way for our listeners to reach you or, follow up? I don't know if you're on social media or anything like that.
If you do want to reach me, if you've got a question, what you need to do is go to the website of the Social Security Agency. And when you go up to the change languages, you will see an option that says Frank. It will take you to a private message, and I can probably give you some tips on how to get that blood out of your shag carpet.
Okay.
Wow,
Much
perfect.
easier than just, asking Jeeves or whoever.
Real quick, one more question as we go out. Alien residue. I want to clean it up. What do I need to clean it up with?
Buttermilk.
That's it? The same with the alien pee? It's just any sort of alien residue?
Yep. Even if you got aliens charging you down and you got a cow nearby, point an udder in their direction and squeeze. Aliens are lactose intolerant.
Oh, so this isn't
It's
gonna
science.
It's not gonna defeat the aliens. It's just going to sort of upset.
Yes, it will defeat them. They will explode.
Yeah, they'll be they'll be on the
So
toilets.
wear plastic.
Ever.
Okay, so wear plastic, shoot buttermilk or whatever kind of milk. Okay. Well, thank you for all these tips, Mr. Frank S. Harris.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, and Cameron, I'm gonna be waiting for you out behind the building. You won't see me.
Is that because you're gonna disappear yourself first?
Oh God, no! I don't want to die.
Thank you to Cameron, our producer. Thank you to Mr. Frank S. Harris for being on the show and sharing with us his custodial tips. Thank you to DJ Dill in the house.
No, I think people should wear masks. Masks make you look like a superhero. I'm sorry, Dr. London, but you're kind of bland anyway. I mean, you look like a woman had a baby with a vanilla envelope. So,
You look like a woman had a baby with a vanilla envelope.
This has been the Jock Doc Podcast.
See ya.
even if you got aliens charging you down and you got a cow nearby, point an udder in their direction and squeeze. Aliens are lactose intolerant.
Aliens are lactose intolerant.
Aliens are lactose intolerant.
You wipe the sludge from your face. Well, you try to, but this slime has a certain greasy, heterogeneous texture that is not as amenable to the classic wipe motion as you had hoped. Well, maybe meow, you have finally learned your lesson. When a giant bug crawls into the kitchen and it just looks like one of those delicious bugs that were famously eaten in the Lion King movie, the appropriate course of action may in fact not be to lift the bug over your mouth and try to squeeze out the juicy insides. Next time, just bite the bullet and make the stupid smoothie like everyone else does. Speaking of biting the bullet, don't forget to leave a 5-star review of the Jock podcast in which you describe your own bug-eating habits. And while you're at it, go ahead and share the Jock podcast with a friend or foe. You can send them a link to your favorite episode, or just send them our handy website, jocktalkpodcast.com. And don't forget to take a peek at our posts on social media. We are at Jock Podcast. Thanks for listening.